And I think we're live. Alrighty then, let's make sure that we're live on all of our platforms. We are trying to go live on YouTube, X. Looks like we're good. Let me know in the chat room if you guys could see us live or not. We're still waiting on YouTube because YouTube's always in a lag for some reason. And there's Facebook. I don't like to go on and talk and do my discussions until I know everyone is live and ready to go.
It says waiting on you, so
Yeah. So it looks like it's still lagging a little
there
bit.
you go.
Oh, there we are. Okay, now we have YouTube. So now we have everyone. So just want to make sure premium chat, you guys are live and ready to roll. And there it is now. All right, so we're live everywhere. Outstanding. Are you guys ready? Because this is the first live chat of fall for 2024. I know a lot of you guys, you go with September 21st, 22nd is the first day of fall. That's for astronomy, and that's fine. But we're meteorology. And the first day of fall in meteorology is September 1st. So this would be the first fall live chat. And so we got a lot of stuff we're going to talk about. We're going to go over some of the NFL games, all right? Because I know I'm always getting those questions. So we'll do that every Wednesday. We'll go over the weather impacts for the game, see if there's anything of interest, see anything that could really impact the games. And, of course, I have a rule because I went Halloween shopping today. If anyone keeps on posting 15-day GFS solutions, they're going to meet this sword, okay? Enough. Okay, there is no reason for anyone to be posting GFS guidance 15 days out for a hurricane or a snowstorm or anything else for that nature. These are the same type of people that give up on baseball teams in April, by the way. And that's why I think those people should be banned from playoff games, looking at some of you Met fans out there. So let's go over some of the data. We'll go over some of the data that is influencing our fall weather pattern. We'll take a look at the tropics. We'll look at the forecast for today, for the upcoming weekend, and of course, the weather impacts for the NFL start of the NFL season. And in the meantime, I'll be keeping an eye on the Mets game. They're up 4-3. Typical of McGill. Gives up runs even when he's ahead, but hopefully the Mets can pull it out. I mean, they've been on a heck of a winning streak. So let's take a look at what we have. And of course, after I get done with my spiel, we will answer all of your questions and hopefully go to about 9 o'clock tonight. So there we go. Now, finally, La Nina is finally starting to get some traction. We have been waiting on it all summer. And this is one of the factors that has really basically put a real monkey wrench into the forecast for the hurricane season. See, the idea, going back to February, was that this La Nina would start to gain control by about, May, June. Then we're getting to April, and there's really no sign. So we're pushing it back to June, July. Yeah, let's go mid-July. We still have an active hurricane season. That's what we're going to put out for the forecast for May. I was slightly above normal, going for about 20 storms, considering how warm the Atlantic was and still is. And you get a favorable wave train. Boom, there you go. Right? Then we get to June. No La Nina. All right. So maybe July. Then we get to July. Not much activity. No La Nina. Oh, and by the way, the SLI, more El Nino than La Nina. The MJO, not exactly favorable. Then we finally get to August. No La Nina. And now we're in September, no La Nina. But we're moving in the right direction finally. Finally, Nino 3.4 is cooling and getting close to below normal. And we have the eastern zones that are very cold. The subsurface is very cold in this area as well. This is going to support an east-based La Nina, and a weak one at that, by the way. But it's been taking a while. Meanwhile, the MJO is kind of weak. So you really had a muted tropical signal. Now, there are a couple reasons why that may be the case. One of them could be the influence of the above normal water vapor in the stratosphere. I say could be for one very important reason. There's a lot of research going into this, and there's a lot we don't know. There's a lot of chaos. So I don't want to come off as saying, like, I know exactly what's causing all of this, because there are people who spend hours upon hours doing research and using all sorts of algorithms and models to try to figure out what's going on and writing research papers, and they don't know. So as an operational meteorologist, I have some theories, but I don't know yet. Okay, and I'm letting the guys who do all the research in the background there that I read on to kind of do some of that heavy lifting to see what we can find, maybe use some artificial intelligence to get a better idea of what is evolving here. But long story short, this hurricane season has been, well, less than impressive, and which is great news. Great news. I know there's some people complaining, why don't we have storms? Where's the storms? The storms could stay away, okay? They could stay way out in the Atlantic and bother nobody else. Unfortunately, as we're going to be checking in a few minutes, there are some tropical low pressure systems that are impacting people, especially in the Western Pacific. We'll talk about that in a second. So our La Nina is starting to gain control, but it's going to take a while. It's a bit of a lag time between the actual establishment of La Nina in the sea surface temperatures and the impacts on the 500 millibar pattern. So how do we study that? Well, we take a look at the SOI and see what's playing out there. Now, a lot of people, when they're using the sea surface temperatures, they try to make an adjustment based on global warming. I don't like using that for a very simple reason. You're still not addressing the primary lifting parameters. I mean, sure, you can play around with the statistics all you want, and that's all cute and all, but it doesn't address anything as far as convection development, wind pattern changes, pressure changes. So it's nonsense to me. I can't really use it. It's nice to use statistically. Okay, if you want to try to make a point about the changing atmospheric conditions, or at least the standards, but it means nothing to me in terms of forecasting. This, though, tells me everything I need to know in forecasting. Now, as I was saying, for much of this summer, the SOI has been in a negative state. And when the SOI is in a negative state, that means it's more El Nino-like influences. Now, here's how you use this data, in case you're wondering. The daily values kind of give you the trends, right? That's what these bar graphs are, okay? And so let's say I'm in a La Nina pattern, but I have a period of negative SOI values. That's usually a pretty good indication for those forecasting on the East Coast that, hey, look, there might be a storm bubbling up. Why? Because that negative anomaly usually supports enhancement of convection around the date line. And that enhancement of convection till it connects to the potential of an East Coast storm. It doesn't tell me how that storm's going to evolve, what the blocking is. It just tells me, hey, the pattern's going to be more active. When the SOI trends more positive, you're more than likely not to see a storm. The short waves are out of whack a bit, and the alignment's off. You tend to have a very progressive pattern. You tend to have a lot of above normal heights over the mid-latitudes. Very La Nina-like, right? So those are your daily values. Then you use the monthly values as a way to trend to see where the incidental forcing is moving towards. So you could use this in terms of trying to see, hey, where are the changes happening? And as you can clearly see, the monthly values are trending from negative to positive. So we're moving towards a La Nina state. This doesn't tell me we're in La Nina. It tells me where we're going. Then the seasonal values, that tells me the gradual change. And the gradual change is slowly but surely trending towards a positive state. We have dropped from, at the start of August, at minus 3.06, and we have gotten down to minus 0.21. So what that tells me is that we don't have the atmospheric influence yet of La Nina, but we're moving towards that state. We're now moving into that neutral state. So in terms of forecasting, if someone says, well, this is because of La Nina, no, it's not, because you don't have the atmospheric forcing for it yet. You have it trending, moving in that direction, but we're not there yet. So what do we use then? Well, we've primarily used the MJO as a bellwether to see where we're going. And as you can see, for the most part, the MJO has been relatively weak. We've had a couple spikes here and there, but nothing too significant. Now, we had a nice spike here in 2, and during that time period, that's when a lot of people were saying, hey, look, the tropical activity is really going to ramp up. And oh, by the way, you want to use a bit of a lag on this as well. Like, just because you're in phase 2 doesn't mean you automatically have phase 2 conditions. You usually want to give about a 5 to 6 day lag until you start to seeing actual influences. So right now we're probably more in, since we're currently in phase 4, we're experiencing more phase 3 conditions, heading towards phase 4 conditions. And so right now we were supposed to see activity in the tropical Atlantic. We're also supposed to see in this phase more of a cool pattern start to build in. And that's what we're seeing now. Below normal temperatures to start September. It's been very nice out there. I've been loving it. So we're feeling these influences, but you always have to consider the lag time between when the MJO wave is in these stages and how it's impacting your weather pattern over the eastern United States or wherever you might be. So the forecast here is for this MJO on the European guidance to basically move through phase 5 and then kind of meander, remain relatively weak, trying to push towards phase 6. The GFS guidance is far stronger in phase 6. Some of the ensemble guidance is suggesting that the CFS tries to do the spike, but it's not too far off from the European and basically bringing it back down. European ensemble guidance, kind of doing that's moving. The European ensembles here is also showing that spike, much like the GFS and the CFS, but then heads down towards a neutral state. So you have these spikes, but nothing sustained. And so what this has been telling me for the summer, for the tropical forecast, is I don't see a huge uptick in tropical activity. And we're at the seasonal peak here. So the forecast that I had for the hurricane season to be above normal and active in September and October, that's going down in flames. I mean, I'm just going to tell you right now, that thing just burst into a billion pieces of garbage at this point. So not really all that impressed in that scenario. And so with that, taking a look at the factors involved here, what could we do for the fall? How do we forecast for the fall? Now, you might be saying, Stephen, what does it matter with the bust of the hurricane season? Why are you concerned about the fall? Well, our typical teleconnections that we've been using have failed. How we read them has failed, okay? Because you don't blame model guidance, you blame the scientist. You blame yourself. And you say, okay, what am I missing here? Is it because of the water vapor in the stratosphere? It's altering the interactions between the stratosphere and troposphere and throwing off our typical forcing mechanisms and delaying the establishment of these circulations? Possibly. We can't say it's strengthening or weakening the polar vortex yet because we don't really have one. But in the southern hemisphere, we've had strong polar vortexes that have been displaced, leading to impressive Arctic outbreaks in portions of Alaska this summer, or what they would call winter, over the past couple of months. Now we're seeing the snow growth starting to be forecast, which I shared with premium members. And we know that the QBO is westerly, strongly so. Okay. So the westerly QBO would suggest a more progressive pattern. But this year we've seen a lot of upper level lows heading into the fall. So there's something amiss here in this forecast. Okay. There's something that the model guidance is missing in handling the evolution of this weather pattern. And what you have to do with all the data we're seeing is kind of take a step back, take the model guidance and just kind of push it to the side. Take your literature and what you've studied, pull that all out and get back to basics. Because your normal teleconnections, your normal forcing parameters, everything that even, look, meteorologists and professors who are far more studied than I am have all seen the same story here. Like, hey, everything suggests major active hurricane season. Some people were a bit extreme. I thought they were a bit insane going with 35 storms, but I digress. Clearly, there is something that we as a community is missing. So, if I go by the normal rules and go by the data we're seeing, we start off fall cool, which we have. And then I wouldn't say warm as in like well above normal, but you get more of this Pacific influence taking shape. Why? Because one would think with a positive QBO, you get a stronger polar vortex taking shape in the fall. Your polar jet streams retracted a bit. Your subtropical jet stream is present but weakened because of La Nina. And you end up with more of a zonal pattern across the United States, which should lead to more of a Pacific influence and mild conditions for mid-September on through, let's say, at least late October. The only wild card here is that this feature here is starting to get more and more enhanced as we move through the forecast period here. Okay. And if this is stronger, this trough here around the Aleutians and portions of the Gulf of Alaska, this is stronger. This ridge should be more amplified, and we should get more polar air masses trying to come in here. So instead of going well above, I've been thinking near to slightly above. Like if your average high is 75, you're more likely to be somewhere between 74 or 75 and 80 on average, bouncing around in that ballpark. So that puts you a few degrees above normal, but nothing that is like groundbreaking or historic or record breaking or anything like that. But this is going to be difficult because seasonal forecasting is always difficult. But we are likely to going into a 10-year period where, because of the water vapor in the stratosphere that is at least like 170 to 180% above normal, all cards are off the table. It's just complete chaos. It's dogs living with cats. It's just complete craziness. So it's fun and challenging as a meteorologist, but also very annoying because, hey, I got clients and you guys depend on me to say, hey, this is what's going to happen with the winter and all this stuff. So I'm thinking right now we have that cool start with fall, which has worked out nicely in the forecast. We average back to near to slightly above normal through the middle of fall, right as the Mets are charging for the World Series. And then as we head towards Thanksgiving, I think we fall back more towards a below normal temperature regime, which is typical of a La Nina, because by then we should get true La Nina influences on this weather pattern. So that's kind of where I'm thinking at that point. And what's going to be very interesting is to watch the evolution of the Arctic Oscillation, the EPO, the Eastern Pacific Oscillation, and the North Atlantic Oscillation. The EPO this fall is going to be the bellwether. That's going to tell me what's going to happen with the Arctic and the North Atlantic Oscillation. And I think the EPO is going to be all over the place throughout the cold season months and just create all sorts of chaos. So, should be fun. Buckle up. Meanwhile, in the tropics, we have one major hurricane out there throughout all the tropics, and that is in the Western Pacific. Typhoon Yangtze. I think I'm pronouncing that right. I've always butchered those names. I do apologize, but don't worry, I butcher English as well, so it works out. So, as you can see, it is a Category 4 hurricane or typhoon, and it is heading right towards Korea and to the south of Taiwan. What this means for us is that it has no impact on us specifically. This is not going to be curving up into the Northern Pacific, but I know that people are going to ask me about it anyway, so I want to make sure I cover it. Unfortunately, zoom in here. Unfortunately, as it's moving into Hanko and then basically Asia here, it is going to get pretty ugly here in China. So unfortunately, things are not looking good over there. For us, though, in the Atlantic, it's almost like the National Hurricane Center is begging for something to develop. We have 4 areas of interest. All of them are under 30% chance for development over the next 7 days. That's basically, it's not going to develop. Okay, you have one feature up here that is more extratropical than anything else. It could pick up some tropical characteristics this weekend while lifting up towards the Canadian Maritimes. We'll talk about that feature in just a moment. We have this tropical wave that we've been watching for almost 2 weeks. Model guidance was suggesting it develop here, then maybe here. Nope, maybe here. Oh no, how about here? So far, it hasn't developed at all. The problem here is that these tropical waves, while initially robust, are running into a lot of dry air, a lot of dust from the Sahara Desert. Vertical wind shear is still an issue. It's not as bad as earlier in the season, but clearly still we do not have established La Nina conditions, which would lead to a lack of vertical wind shear, or at least a severe reduction of it. And so as a result, these tropical waves are not developing low-level circulations. They're not maturing. Some of the waves that have come off the African coast have tried to develop. Not much has really moved forward. So yeah, we'll keep an eye on this wave. It could be a threat as it kind of stews in the Gulf of Mexico this weekend into early next week. So those of you in Texas and Louisiana, it doesn't have to develop. It could just be a really nasty heavy rainfall event. So we'll watch out for that. But I don't see any sign at all of any of these tropical waves taking on more development. There just isn't that sign yet. You have a feature here that is about to get torn apart via vertical wind shear. You see this trough right here? It's just going to rip this apart. So that's not likely to develop. Then you got this feature out here, which is falling under the same vertical wind shear. It has a little bit of a mid-level circulation to it, but that's it. No low-level circulation, not even a confluence point, not much in the way of any type of divergence or diffluence aloft to enhance thunderstorm development, and the majority of thunderstorm development is well to the south of this little twist in the clouds, this little circulation. The tropical waves coming off the African coast, nothing really stands out to me. There is a little bit of a northward shift that could lead to a little bit more development in a couple of weeks ahead, but look, guys, we're in the peak. We're in the peak of the hurricane season. If something doesn't start to get rocking and rolling soon, we're going to be in for a massive bust to the forecast. And you know me, I hate using the word bust when it comes to weather, especially when an event hasn't happened yet. But, I mean, this is a bust. This is like huge, okay? So, I'm just going to admit it right now. This is not looking good at all for the forecast, which I'm kind of happy about, because who needs to lose a house? Who needs to have massive flooding, right? So I'll take that. I'll take the L if it means that people don't lose their homes and whatnot. Here is the latest forecast from the European guidance. Again, I was trying to pick up some sort of low out here, but this is more cold core than anything else. So I'm not really all that impressed with it. They'll probably try to squeeze out maybe a subtropical storm out of this. Then you got the feature out here that could rapidly develop. A lot of warm water here, so if you do actually get a warm core low actually to form, it can rapidly develop pretty quickly. So everyone on the western Gulf Coast here should be keeping an eye on this feature as it passes over to Yucatan. And of course, we have more tropical waves coming off the African coast. But notice a lot of these tropical waves, once they get off, they start to turn northward pretty quickly because there's a nice little weakness here in your Western Atlantic ridge. So it's basically acting like a shield. So you have two shields, one here and one here for the East Coast. And that's what's pretty much protecting us this fall, aside from the fact that nothing's really developing. So that's certainly some good news. Now, closer to home, what was there to say? It's absolutely beautiful out there. I mean, you have temperatures in the 60s, low humidity, getting more of an easterly wind, so you get more of a influence from the Atlantic Ocean. Taking a look at the latest radar, nothing, quiet, lovely. Water vapor satellite picture showing a nice area of confluence here, and you can see some sinking air starting to take hold here. Here's your subtropical jet stream focusing in on the moisture transport that's staying to the south of us. Polar jet streams up here, subtropicals down here. You can see in the upper level winds, we have a little bit of a misalignment in the jet streams. So you got this polar shortwave here dropping in that's leading to this convergence and confluence that led to a beautiful day today. That's going to continue on through tomorrow until we start to shift towards more of an influence of this trough coming in with this dynamic shortwave trying to swing out ahead of the main trough. So on the infrared satellite picture, you can see it's pretty quiet right now. Here comes trouble brewing for this weekend. Now, is this weekend a washout? No. In fact, I even saw some, let's say, interesting content that was calling for a deluge of rainfall. Now, I noticed some model guidance was suggesting maybe a coastal storm. I know the European was trying to pull that off. And I said a couple of days ago, in fact, I said it in the Premium Public video back on Friday. I didn't buy it because the whole nature of this pattern is progressive. It's focused to the east. So it's really, really difficult to buy into a type of phasing solution where you don't really have much in the way of blocking and everything is with a positively tilted trough. So let me show you what that means. Okay. So 24 hours out, there's that feature out here in the Atlantic. Here's that other feature that was being highlighted. And here's our trough. This trough is a positively tilted trough. So your upper level winds are all from the southwest to northeast. So anything that tries to develop on the coast, and this is a good tool to learn during the fall and winter, is that everything gets forced east. All right, it just gets kicked east. So the only way to really establish anything like a storm on the East Coast would be a perfect phase. And even in that scenario with a positively tilted trough, anything that forms is going to move fast. So you want to stay away from enhanced rainfall amounts in that scenario unless you have some sort of convective influence, which you really can't highlight until you get within 48 hours of a storm. So everything's moving very quickly. Your precipitation shield is most likely going to move faster than what's being modeled. And it's very difficult to lock in that phasing solution. More than likely what you get is one to three different storms all moving in the same area but never actually interacting. And so that's essentially what we have developing here. Here's our, let's call this a subtropical low pressure system. Let's say it starts out cold core, picks up some warm core characteristics at about 9 to 25 millibars, and they try to name it. Okay, rather than argue with it, that's probably what's going to happen. So this is going to start to act up. This trough approaches. This feature is very slow to move because it's detached from the polar jet stream. So by the time we get to Friday, we have an onshore flow, but you have this separation between this feature here and this trough and all the lifting going on here and this feature here. So what you end up with is this area of substance. 500 millibar ridge tries to form kind of like a shortwave ridge. So it leads to sinking air. So you get a lot of low clouds because of the onshore flow. That's some drizzle, a few showers. But overall, Friday, not too bad. Not too bad at all. You might get a passing shower, but that's about it. And then there's that ridge I was telling you about, Friday night to Saturday morning. Still there. Our feature here, again, some sort of subtropical type of development here over the coastal waters of the Canadian Maritimes, or at least lifting to it. And because of this whole process, this feature down here is well ahead of this trough, because this trough, shifting more and more towards a positive tilt, is producing strong steering currents away from the coast. So it's forcing this to get kicked out. It's making this move faster, and then this is hanging back as an upper level low tries to form. Now, one could make the argument that this is acting kind of like as a blocking feature. Why? Because you're getting this strong lifting and this strong intensification out here. And so what that does is that pumps up the ridge here, slows this trough down, and leads to this upper level low forming. So on Saturday morning, you still have weak lifting. Your strongest lifting is all focused back here over the Eastern Great Lakes. I know there's some football games going on with the with college football. So out in central Pennsylvania and towards let's say Rutgers and whatnot, wherever's going on over this area, most locations Saturday morning into early Saturday afternoon will be dry, cloudy, a few pesky showers here and there, but overall not bad. So when do we see the rainfall? Well, when this upper level low shifts towards the St. Lawrence River Valley, it sends this lifting here like a slingshot right through the region, acting as one wall of showers and thunderstorms. No interaction with the subtropical shortwave, no interaction with the disturbance that's forming off the coast. It's just a slingshot of a cold front that drives through the region. And that is what's basically being supported here on the at 850 millibars. Again, there is that slingshot I was telling about. There's that ridge. There's the slingshot. No true interaction here. No phasing, because this feature is getting kicked out too fast. This feature is staying separate, and this feature is intensifying. So again, all this coming together means you just have a regular cold front, and that's about it. And the reason why I was able to pinpoint that back on Friday is because of recognition of the pattern that we have. This is a pattern where, unless you get something incredibly unusual developing, like a hurricane develops unexpectedly right off of the New England coast and enhances the blocking, which isn't happening. I'm just saying something that would be hyper unusual. This is what was going to happen, because the whole long wave trough dynamic is all in a positive tilt orientation. So an only way to change that was to create a negatively tilted trough, which there is no support for in any guidance in any way, shape, or form. So if you understand the nature of those dynamics, then you already understand the nature of the weather pattern we're dealing with. And so, with the precipitable water, there is your moisture transport for cloudy skies on Friday and Saturday. Here we are Saturday night into Sunday. There's our heavy rainfall moving through. Sunday, beautiful and fall-like. With falling temperatures, it's going to feel like the 50s and 60s out there. So again, that's why when we look at this, we're pretty much just dealing with a nice shot of moderate to heavy rainfall Saturday night into Sunday morning, which as a 45-year-old means I'm going to bed. For other people, maybe you're going out having fun, I don't know. But if you're going out clubbing or whatnot, you probably need an umbrella. Finally, that gets us to NFL games. because I know I'm always being asked, so I'm going to touch on that, and of course I'm going to answer all your questions here. So we start off with the Chiefs game on Thursday. Looks like it's going to be pretty quiet around Kansas City, not expecting any type of major weather impacts. I do expect Patrick Mahomes to give the Ravens more nightmares. What can I say? It's going to be glorious. But anyway, as far as the Eagles and Philadelphia, they are playing in Brazil. I don't know why. I wish the NFL, and by the way, Major League Baseball, stop doing this. No one wants our games. They're all playing soccer. Leave it alone. And stop putting our NFL and Major League Baseball teams in foreign countries screwing up the schedule. I beg them to stop doing that. So let's shift to Sunday. And for most of the games, it's pretty quiet. I'm not seeing any type of major weather impacts. There could be a few showers for the Buffalo Bills. That could be a little bit of a factor for the passing game, especially with some of those winds coming off of Lake Erie. But I'm not seeing anything that's heavy, so that shouldn't be too bad. Rest of the country is pretty quiet, not seeing any type of major weather impacts. Let's say for the Monday night game out in San Francisco with the Jets, I think the Jets are going to be good this year. Well, I'm better than last year, which doesn't say much. Just bubble wrap your quarterback before he goes out in the field. Maybe you have a shot. God knows their offensive line was horrible. I had no type of weather impacts for the Jets versus San Francisco, which I'm sure will be a fabulous game. Now, with that, I am going to... I'm not making the picks, though. I'm not getting blamed for anyone making bad betting. All I'm going to tell you is that as a Chiefs fan, I'm just going to enjoy the season because winning 3 Super Bowls in a row is something that would be truly a miracle. And there's no one in the AFC West that scares me. So I know they won the division. So we'll see what happens. So let's dive into some questions here. And we start off with Card Shark. As always, non-weather note, I fully expect the Yankees to lose whenever they bring in Clayton Holmes. Hey, you need to learn as a Met fan, you never give up, and you got to believe. And at some point, he'll remember the pitch properly. But hey, look, who am I? Everyone in Major League Baseball has had a problem with their closers, so don't worry. So the 18Z GFS is finally doing the GFS things and spinning up strong hurricanes over 300 hours out. Yep. The GFS is at some point is going to do what GFS always does. Make content for people to scare the hell out of everyone else. But with that said, I can't say it's unrealistic in the idea of something developing. I mean, geez, we're in the peak of the hurricane season. Something's going to develop. So we'll see what happens. Also, the increased 700 millibar cold air is really starting to accelerate as 850 millibars and the surface follow a bit slower for now. Yeah, you should see a massive increase in cold air expansion at 850 millibars and surface over Asia by mid-September, if all the model guidance is right. And I like that idea with a positive QBO because think about this. With a positive QBO, you're going to have a very strong polar vortex take hold, and that's going to really start to focus a lot of that cold air. So I expect a pretty significant increase in the snowfall development and the polar air masses. Still rather healthy subtropical jet stream. Seems that could be another La Nina that has an overperforming subtropical jet. Yes, I agree 100%, and I'm building that into my forecast. In fact, I did it with the fall forecast, and my preliminary winter forecast notes, not the forecast itself, just the notes, has that as a factor, that this subtropical jet is not fading away. There's going to be plenty of moisture to work with over the southern tier, which makes the forecast for this winter interesting, but not any guarantee of above normal snowfall yet. I'm already going to get that question. But this La Nina, again, is going to be very, very difficult to forecast for. But I do think La Nina will be established. I just think it's going to be weak. Yankees are on Apple or oh, they're probably on Amazon tonight. That's right. God, man, the Yankee fans really got screwed on that one. Let's see here. Low humidity has been awesome. Dew points in the upper 30s and lower 40s. Yeah, I mean, I'm loving this. I could have this all year. Thank you very much. 700 millibar has a broad... Here, hold it. Let me fix this here. Let's see. 700 millibars has a broad low, but starting to get pretty solid counterclockwise circulation. Yeah, I wouldn't expect anything being really established towards the end until we get towards the end of the month of September. One thing I have noticed that seems much more prominent is the crosswind flow between southern and northern hemisphere at the equator. Not a huge impact on that, really. There has been literally no indication of any type of true interaction. You get some cross flow, but not enough to make any significant changes or influence. Let's see here. I'm going to put the cart before the horse, but the CFS looks very interesting for this winter, but the long range has been bad. I'm scared to buy it. So do you buy or sell the Idea Theory's long range shows? I think it's very, very dangerous based on what we experienced last year to put a lot of trust in the long range guidance. With that said, I think the idea of using a climatological La Nina forecast for your winter is an error. I don't know if you guys could hear that, but apparently we're being invaded again. We always get like a whole bunch of helicopters pass over us from time to time. Fun times. NFL season starts tomorrow. Yes, with a Chiefs win. NFL still having the game in Brazil, even though no one at the game covering it will be able to tweet about the game. They'll find a way to get around that. If the NFL is a corporation, they could just use that and just use the what's it called? Yeah, they'll find a way to get around it. They always do. Let's see what we got on YouTube. Let's see here. Do you know of any experiment witnessed by a scientist written in scientific literature which shows carbon dioxide thermalizes its surroundings? You mean warming? Sure. It's like, all right, if you chemistry high school, okay, college chemistry 101, saw it there. There are other papers. I mean, they're kind of old, but they do show that it is a basic greenhouse gas. So if it didn't warm and thermalize, as you put it, we wouldn't have an atmosphere as warm as we do. So yes, long story short, are we done with 90s? I would say we're done with sustained 90s. I don't want to say no, and then we get a spike for like a day in like Philadelphia, and then I look like a jackass. So we're done with sustained 90s. I can't rule out a day of, let's say, 89, 90 degrees in southern Philadelphia ahead of a strong cold front. That's a possibility. Can't rule that out. Do we have any questions on X? No, it's quiet. Nice. By the way, the Mets are still winning 4-3. Let's see how the Braves are doing.
YouTube.
We still got... Oh, we got one more. Will the tropics become more active by mid-September? One would think at this point in mid-September we'll see more activity. But right now I'm not seeing any. But the idea is yes. Climatologically, yes. if we don't see any other activity from here on out through October, that would be something very unusual. Therefore, watching. Oh, I appreciate it, Lewis. 34 watching, like video. I really appreciate it. Yes,
11 likes on my end.
I would say I appreciate every one of you that watches this, especially during the quiet season. Look, let's be honest. When we actually get a winter storm, there's like 1,000 people in here. It's like insane. And there's a lot of activity going on. Foul ball. So let's be honest. When it gets to the winter and we start getting snow, this place gets flooded. You guys all know it. So I appreciate those of you who are here when it's kind of quiet and you're looking just for a little bit of an educational boost. I really do appreciate it. And of course, I appreciate the questions. Let's see. Yeah, it looks like that is pretty good. Now, when do I expect more storm potential in the fall? Okay, we'll leave winter alone for now because there's a whole bunch of nonsense in that we really don't want to jump on just yet. But in the fall, what I would want to see is a shift with our trough shifting more to a negative tilted trough. And once we start to see that become established, then I think we start to see a better potential for East Coast low pressure systems and storms. As it stands now, anytime I see a positive tilted trough, I'm thinking cold front swinging through, maybe a secondary low pressure system produces some heavier rainfall for a longer period of time, but no major storms. I just don't see it for a bit. So anyway, that's some good news because we don't need to have any major storms. With that, if we don't have any more questions, looks like we're good on YouTube. Anything on X, honey? Or Facebook?
I'm in that. No, there's nothing.
Okay. And we don't have any more questions here on the live chat. So for tonight, we're going to call it a night and get back to enjoying the beautiful weather because it is absolutely amazing out there. So I hope everyone enjoys this nice weather. And as always, stay safe out there.